Hey there, y'all. Tim Risto here, host of the Creative Christians podcast, joining you again for another Tim Talks Christian Rock. It is so good to see you. I'm going to talk a little bit of Christian rock news today. About a week ago, just a little under a week ago, as of the date of this recording, a YouTube video dropped over on Michael Drive's YouTube channel, with him talking all about the nature of, physical media versus streaming in the music industry. For those unfamiliar with Michael, he's the lead singer of the band Human Code. They have a great new album out. Check it out. And for some of us older rockers, he was the former lead singer of the band Barren Cross. And he gave a very well-phrased and passionate talk about supporting the artists through the purchase of physical media. And so I want to take a look today at a little bit of what he said and kind of break that down, because I think he has some really great points and some really neat things to say. This is not a new issue, obviously. This has been around for a long time. But in the last year or two, it's really started to kind of come back to the surface. And he's got some great points to make, and I'd like to take a look at that. Those of you who routinely watch my channel know that I'm a big proponent, a big fan of physical media. In my collection, I've got a number of vinyls, CDs, even starting to get back into collecting some cassettes as well, too. And from the videos that I've got here on the channel, you can see, obviously, that I often showcase some of the latest vinyl that I've purchased or collected. Even CDs that I've collected. So you can tell that I love physical media. I'm a big fan of it. And so I'm a big supporter of this and of what Michael Drive is talking about here. So I want to take a look at what he has to say. I'm not going to show the whole video. It's not long. It's only 6 or 7 minutes long. And I will put a link to his full video in the description below. I'd highly encourage you to go take a look at it and listen to what he has to say. But I am going to pull probably 2 or 3 sound bites from the video, kind of break down what he says and take a look at that, and then also give some statistics as we're talking about this whole issue that kind of helps to further illustrate the point that he's trying to make. So anyway, I want to start with this whole idea of when physical media was really kind of king for the music industry, probably in particular from like the 80s through the 2000s was really when physical media kind of reigned. You had CDs were big, cassettes were still around, and vinyl was making a resurgence. Of course, now it's become very collectible once again. But CDs and other media have really paled in comparison. So, that time period was really unique. That's when I got into Christian rock. I was buying a lot of vinyl back in the 80s, and CDs, of course, were becoming big, so I was buying a lot of that as well. I had a ton of cassettes. So physical media for me started back then and really has continued ever since. Although more recently now I've gotten back into vinyl the last, 3-4 years or so, 5 years. And I've really enjoyed that as well. But during that time period was really the reign of physical media from the 80s to about the 2000s. So in this first clip from Michael Drive, he really does a good job of painting the picture of what that time was like when physical media reigned and kind of his response to getting a new album and CD. And also does a really good job of drawing that connection between physical media and our human connection to it, using our senses to respond to physical media. So take a look at this, and then we'll talk more about it on the other side.
In my generation, when I first became a recording artist, it was right around the time when CDs came into the picture, and a lot of people had vinyl records, which have been making a comeback, actually. And at that time, there was no streaming yet. If I was waiting for my favorite band's new album to come out, I'd grab my skateboard, which I did at the time, and I'd jam down to the local music store, hopefully on the very day it was coming out and scheduled to be on the shelf. And then I'd rush home and probably play it a bunch of times as I completely engrossed myself in the graphics and in the credits. I mean, I would pore over every single square inch of the graphics on that thing to see the pictures, read the lyrics, and learn as much about the band as possible. And then I would take it over to my friend's house and we'd do the same thing all over again. That was an exciting time for us on the day when our favorite band's new album was coming out. And there are certain things that we would just take in with all of our senses. You know, you're hearing the music, but you're feeling it too in your chest. And you're seeing the band presented in the graphics. You're reading the messages behind the songs, and you're maybe finding out some cool and interesting things about the band, such as, you know, where and how they made the album. And you're smelling the brand new fresh ink of this physical booklet and just taking it all in.
I love how he phrases all that and how he kind of describes this whole experience of engaging or interacting with, you know, the physical media. You know, as human beings, we're, of course, created in the image of God, and we've got these 5 senses, right? And we use a number of them to engage with different media. And this media in particular has, you know, physical media in particular has these kind of multi-sensory approach to things, right? Hearing, you know, we're audibly listening to the music, of course, which in many cases in physical media is much better quality than the quality of streaming media. We've got the visual aspect, right? We're visually looking at the album art and the photos and reading the lyrics and, you know, processing all of that as well. Or touching it, of course. Sometimes the album art, or, you know, just the experience of holding a CD or the album. Sometimes the album art is textured. Sometimes the CDs are textured, you know, raised lettering or what have you. So you've got that sensory perception. We're, of course, processing things mentally and emotionally as we listen to them. So I just like that this whole, you know, sensory aspect of physical media combines as part of the experience of listening to and enjoying music. So I think he does a good job of kind of painting that picture. So I really like that. And I share that. I mean, to me, that's part of the enjoyment of engaging with a band's new album and the music that they have, or an artist's album and the music that they put out. The other thing, too, is there's almost kind of this communal experience with others who collect physical media, right? You kind of share the experience of what that's like, and everybody has different experiences because it is this multisensory approach. So not only is it engaging with the music, but again, the product itself and what all of that as a combined experience provides you, and how, you know, we as human beings have different memories, different experiences of that, and how we can share that in a communal aspect too. In this next clip I want to show you from Michael, he talks about when streaming came along and how that started to present problems for artists as things progressed. Take a look.
When people started free downloading and pirating music, that would not only hurt the whole industry, but it would come to hurt the very bands whom the fans loved. And then came streaming, which put a nail in the coffin. Here's why. Streaming pays almost nothing to the artist. Do you know how much streaming pays the artist? Let's put up a number here. Say $100. At the time of this video, do you know how many streams it takes on Spotify for an artist or band to make $100? Over 30,000. It takes over 30,000 streams just to make $100, and that hurts the artists.
He's absolutely right. You know, as he started to recount there, you look back at the history of how this all unfolded. Some of you may be old enough to remember Napster coming about. I remember. And that first started kind of the piracy of music, and how that ultimately pushed companies like Apple and Spotify and others to develop, you know, streaming of music, which then led ultimately to so many artists getting paid a pittance. In my audio podcast, Creative Christians, earlier this year I featured musician Angie Goeke, who's Americana and folk musician. And in that interview, she talked a little bit about the frustrations of the music industry in regard to streaming and how little artists get supported financially by that. play a quick clip for you right here. Let's talk about the streaming side of things. I remember a while back you had shared on social media a little bit at one point about some of the frustrations of how artists, aren't fairly compensated. And I've heard this a lot from a lot of different artists before too. This is kind of a common thing, but whether it's iTunes or whatever the streaming platform may be, getting compensated for your work is pretty minimal through these platforms, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about that, because you've learned about that side of things too, that a lot of others may not know about.
Streaming, it's an artist makes fractions of a penny on one stream. You've got to get millions of streams to even get close to a number that could potentially be, not require you to have another job or two on the side. Right. It is the way that it is. Like, there's not a whole lot as artists that we can do about it. And so it just requires there to be a whole nother layer to the business. Right. And I've had to look at my music endeavors as I'm starting a business, because it costs a lot of money to make a record. It costs a lot of money to produce this stuff. Yeah. And so just getting creative with other products. Right. And how can I sell merchandise at shows or online, because just selling the music on streaming isn't going to make it, know.
Yeah.
And even, I think artists are also, not everywhere, but undercompensated for even live music. Mm-hmm. The whole adage about you're getting, exposure.
Free promotion.
Like, that's probably the most insulting thing you could ever say to a professional musician or artist. It's hours of practice, hours of work, hours of creating and writing. If I usually play out with a guitarist, or if I have, a full band, I got to pay those guys. This is their, meat and potatoes. It's feeding them. And so it's just nobody's in it to make money, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And too often, as you mentioned or alluded to, it's accepted that way by others too, as opposed to compensating artists for what they're worth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just simply thinking about the amount of consumption of music in one person's daily life, even if they don't turn on the radio in the car, even if they're not streaming music, they're going to the grocery store and consuming music while they shop. Any department store, right? There's music. If they go home and watch TV, if they watch Netflix, there's music and all of that stuff, right? And so I think understanding how much the average person, whether they are a live music fan or, right? They don't listen to music for a hobby or enjoyment. They are still consuming my product.
Right.
So at what point then do we get compensated for that,
Exactly. And yet, is streaming do you need it or is that something even you're evaluating? Is it necessary? Is it necessary for promotion? How necessary is streaming to an artist?
It's important, very important. Yeah. Same with social media. Right. Social media numbers. It is hard to get booked for a gig if you don't have a certain social media following, if you don't have a certain number of streams online. And this is without anybody ever listening to your music. They won't listen to your music until you have those numbers, right? And so how do you get there if you can't get the gigs? I think it's something that every kind of emerging independent artist struggles with.
Some really good points from her. Great discussion with Angie Goeke in that episode. I'll leave a link in the description down below if you want to check out the rest of that podcast episode. Really good stuff. Angie Goeke is a great Americana folk artist. We talk about more than just streaming in the interview, but talk a lot about her music, of course, her faith, and also about breaking into the music industry. So highly encourage you to check that out as well. But again, her points are well founded. And just to bring a few statistics into this here, over on research website Gitnux.org, I'll also put a link to this in the description. A couple little stats I want to bring out here. First one here is digital music sales accounted for 64% of global recorded music revenue in 2019. 64% back in 2019. Here we are in 2024, quickly heading on to 2025. So you know that number is much, much higher. That percentage is probably, I don't know. I want to take a guess at it, but I'm sure it's much higher than 64% now, 5 years later. Another statistic here. Streaming services generated 83% of the music industry's revenue in the U.S. in the first half of 2020. Again, here we are in 2024, almost 2025. 83% was pretty high as it was. You can imagine how high it is now. So the point being, artists are getting a pittance and the music industry is getting rich. So what do? How can we better support the bands and the artists who work so hard to produce this great music that we love? Here's my last clip from Michael.
What can you do? Buy the album. Don't stream it. Whether you want the digital download to play in your music app on your phone, or you want that beautiful experience of having a physical album in your hands, then buy the CD or the vinyl or whatever other medium it comes in. Find out from the band how to get it. Whether you want physical or digital, go to their website, buy it directly from them, or buy it from the vendor that licenses it. When you do it that way, and you buy the merchandise, such as the t-shirts, the hoodies, the wristbands, and the different cool things that they offer, as well as the music itself, then you're supporting the artist. And then you're connecting with them and with other like-minded people. And all that, believe it or not, makes for better music and more creativity. They're going to put out better music when you do that because there's a connection there. And remember, this is not about me. And this is not about my band. This is about the whole family of musicians and singers that I'm standing in the gap for here and speaking on their behalf. Not many of us are standing up and talking about this. They have this beautiful talent and this beautiful gift from God. And we're giving you the results of that and hoping that you'll be moved by what we do. Well, if you are, then do this for us. Buy it. Don't stream it. If you have to, then you have to. There's no condemnation here, okay? I want you to know that. But this is a call to action that I'm asking of you to buy it, not stream it. This means a lot to a lot of us, and we will appreciate you for it.
He makes a lot of great points in that last clip there. First, I want to really address the fact how he highlights this connection to the audience and the artist's creativity. That obviously they can make better music, when they're well supported. And of course that they know an audience is connecting with them. And physical media offers a way to do that. So it helps their creativity. Here at Creative Christians, we're all about creativity and faith. And, those things go hand in hand as part of the creative process when you look at this kind of sensory and communal shared aspect that physical media provides. I think that's a really great point. And as I just mentioned, that community aspect, that communal aspect that we talked about earlier too, he draws that into the conversation here as well. I think that's really important. That's a tougher thing to really show or get out of streaming. So I think this physical media provides that connectivity in a way that streaming doesn't. So I love that he draws those into the conversation. Love to hear anybody's thoughts further about those aspects of it. The band's creativity that's improved or enhanced by this relationship with the listener that comes through the ownership and purchase and support of physical media, and also the community aspect that physical media provides. Anybody want to comment on that down below, please share your thoughts on all this. I think it's kind of fascinating. But again, the biggest thing is supporting the artists by purchasing physical media, or as he mentions, merchandise or things like that. I mean, there's also a historical aspect about all of this that I think is kind of fascinating. When I look at my physical media collection, pull out things like, to pull Michael Michael's passed into this a little bit. A Barren Cross album like Atomic Arena, great album. I love having this on vinyl, and this is an original vinyl from Benson, Enigma Records back in the day. It is so cool to own the actual vinyl of this from an album from back in the day that I listen to regularly now. There's something nice about holding this, about checking out the amazing cover art on this. This was just so cool. Of course, reading the lyric sheet in there, looking at the band photos in there. Or even when you look at things like, I've shown this recently in some videos, but this Mass vinyl photo disc that just has printed really, really nicely. Looks good. Is gorgeous, has band photo on the back. There's just something about the listening experience when I can put this on the turntable and, of course, be able to check out the photos and the graphics on here. I can smell the vinyl even from here, the plastic sleeve and the vinyl. It's part of that sensory perception and listening experience that just adds to the listening experience. And then more recently here, some of you may have just seen my CPR concert review video. Well, here's the vinyl that I had the band sign at the meet and greet, the Beat the System vinyl, and to be able to take something physically to a meet and greet like that, to a live concert, and have the band sign it. Again, that's just part of the experience. It's part of the tactile element. It's part of the visual element of having physical media, and then the history of knowing that each of the band members held this vinyl and touched it and, of course, autographed it. There's something unique that adds to the story of not just this album and its importance in the band's history, but what this particular copy, the importance of it, the value of it to me now, because I've got a personal connection to the band that held it and signed it, and what this means to me. And if I pass this down to my kids, what that can then mean to them as well. So there's this kind of ongoing living history, you could say, for physical media in that sense too. All sorts of interesting thoughts that can grow from that conversation. Anyway, what do you think? Are you all big supporters of physical media? Do you use streaming? I do occasionally. Obviously, if I go walk the dog, I've got my cell phone on me, I put my earbuds in, I'll listen to streaming then. So I do make use of it as a convenience tool, but whenever possible, I really push for putting a record on the turntable or a CD in, or even a cassette occasionally. So as I mentioned, I'm a big supporter of physical media. But streaming is a part of life. It is a part of the convenience of life. It is a part of the music industry. It's probably not going away. But what are y'all's thoughts on this? Would love to hear your comments. Do you support Michael Drive and his points of view in all this? What do you think about what I've shared here today? Would love to hear your comments on all of this. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Hope we presented something of interest to you. Go and support Michael Drive. Go buy the Human Code album, and just support artists as much as you can by buying physical media. That's it for me today, y'all. Have a great day. Go out and listen to some great Christian rock, maybe some Human Code today, or even some Barren Cross. Pick something up and support the artist. Have a great day. See you next time. But above all else, remember, stay in God's Word, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.